Welcome to the podcast, fellow griever. I'm Melissa, your host, and I'm with you on this journey because my own incredible 21-year-old son, Alex, died by suicide on August 7th in 2016. My world was shattered, but slowly, bit by bit, I began the difficult journey of rebuilding a new life, just like you may be doing right now. So know that I see you, because I am you. Thank you so much for being here. It truly means more than I can say. And if you are new to the podcast, please consider listening to the introduction, Meet Me, episode number 1, which is now linked in the show notes starting in late season 6. Listen to know what to expect from the podcast, to learn more about me, and so that you will know all that I offer in my community for support, connection, and healing. If you are not a new listener and haven't listened to this Meet Me episode recently, it's updated and you may learn something new. Every week, we will continue to explore the questions that haunt us, seek the courage to uncover the healing tools within us, and offer the comfort of a community we all need so very much. Come along with me, because this is so very lonely, but we do not have to be alone. Together, let's choose to find meaning and even happiness amid the leftover pieces before us. Welcome to today's episode. Hello, griever. And if your heart's been nudging you to put words to your love, maybe this is your sign. I'm personally inviting you to add your voice to the Because They Are Loved poetry and letter anthology being written for and by suicide loss survivors. Pricing is intentionally low, but through September you can save 10% more with coupon code podcast10. Not sure you're ready? Join my live workshop this Wednesday, September 10th. Come and get input, rework a piece that you already have, or just co-work in good company of other grievers. Also, check the show notes for the next date before month's end, because I may indeed offer another workshop. If cost is in any way a barrier, message me. There are limited scholarships available. And if you're able to help someone else submit, there's a donate to the scholarship button on the anthology page, and every dollar goes to scholarships. A portion of proceeds of this project are also donated, with the beneficiary changing every 6 months. So let's put an advocacy piece out into the world that honors our loved ones and carries their legacy forward. Find all the information and ways to submit through the show notes or directly at theleftoverpieces.com. Hello, fellow griever, and welcome to today's episode. I am Melissa, your host here at The Leftover Pieces, and today I welcome a resilient survivor and author who has overcome numerous life-altering challenges. But today we will speak specifically to the loss of his youngest son, Heston, by suicide in June of 2020. And despite enduring a life of traumatic events, Andy considers himself a survivor. And in his new book, Overcoming Life's Toughest Setbacks, he distills his 15 core beliefs that have helped him get going when life didn't let up. His lens is earned. Childhood sexual abuse and bullying, losing his mother at a very young age, estrangement from his father, a diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer with multiple surgeries and chemo, and then the death of his youngest son by suicide. The result in this book is a practical, no-nonsense approach, favoring humility, clear thinking, focused work, relentless curiosity, perseverance, and finishing what you start. Andy writes and speaks for people who are exhausted, hurting, and still trying, offering a framework you can reach for when you need steadiness. He lives with his wife and stays closely connected to his 3 adult children. In this episode, we walk you through the key ideas from the book and talk about his son, Heston. and how he and his family have been processing their loss since Heston's passing. We get a peek at Andy's father's eye view of resilience and what surviving and continuing to live with meaning looks like now. He discusses these 15 core beliefs and how they are now guideposts. He documented those first for himself and now in his book, where he provides a path forward for others. He tells me that his why is to be able to share these beliefs with real-life examples as a possibility that they will encourage someone just like you or me, that we too can continue in spite of this crushing grief. And he encourages us to feel it completely, but still be able to move through it. Let's welcome Andy. Hey, hi, Andy. Welcome to the podcast. Yeah, I'm honored to have you and to be able to have this discussion. I'm contacted by a dad, or a dad says yes. Really glad you're doing this because dads grieve too. So I'm going to ask you to share your story, whatever that means to you, Andy.
Thank you. Our story started, or at least the place where I remember it being so tightly associated with what became an eventual suicide, was my son was 9 years old, and only 9. We had been to a restaurant to eat. We were walking out. My 3 children were getting into the car. My son had called my wife over. They sat on the curb. Her face had some distress. They eventually came back over to the car, got in. I said, "What's going on?" She said, "I'll tell you later." We got home, and she told me that my son at the age of 9, who had no internet connection, no friends or parents of friends who had committed suicide, told my wife that day that he had determined that life was not worth living and that he was going to kill himself. That's where it started. 9 years of doing everything we could to keep him on this planet. On June 7th, 2001, he did not come down from his room. He had been in a mood for a couple of days, uncharacteristic, because we thought he had made so much progress. I had a job that he really liked. The guy he worked for, he really liked. Everything seemed to be going well, but things were not good. And then we'd had a confrontation over something really silly. Like, he had worn his muddy work boots into the house, and his mother didn't want him wearing those on the carpet. Somewhere along the way, it was like, "Look, if you just insist on wearing your muddy boots on the carpet, then you need to do it at your own apartment. Okay, so what do I help you get your own apartment, right? You're 18 now. Then you can wear your muddy boots anywhere." But from my point of view, it was a rainy day, storming. My wife said, "We need to go. He needs time." I remember he put on this jacket. He had gone outside, sat under a covering, but he was sitting basically in the rain. It was a very dark scene. And she told me, "No, we need to go now." I walked outside, went to the mailbox, got the mail, started to take it back inside. She said, "Do not walk back inside the house. I need to put the mail." She goes, "Don't go back inside the house." There was something about the way she looked at me and the way she said it. I got in the car, and as we drove away, she said, "Heston will either damage the house, hurt the dogs, or kill himself." And I said, "That's ridiculous. He's been in a mood, and several years before he had punched a wall. He was doing so much better now. He loves the dog. He's not going to kill himself today. We're past all that. Things are much better now." She said, "We can't stop it any longer. Today is the day he decides." I don't know how she knew. They were extremely close. He was the youngest. When everybody else had gone off, she was able to spend more time with him than any of the others. He had promised her he would never kill himself without coming to her first, but he didn't. Somehow she knew things were not going to go well. He was highly intelligent, loved philosophy, learned to read and write Latin. So it wasn't uncommon that he would be in his room just reading. Usually he would just come down, and then we would talk about things. We left him there, went to bed, didn't hear from him, but, it's like, well, he's in that mood. He has a bathroom.
And he's 18. You don't always go checking on your 18-year-olds all day. Yeah. You think they're fine, you let them be.
The next morning he didn't come down. I made a mad dash to get into his room because the door was locked. Opened the door, didn't see him in one direction, and then found him to the right. That's where his pain ended and shifted to us. So that's the story.
Thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry from one parent to another. You are not the only person I've heard say they inexplicably had a younger child between 9 and 12 start to talk about suicidal ideation and knowing in their mind they're not supposed to live. It's not the most common thing I hear, but I have heard it before, which is interesting to think that there are people that would have similar experiences with their child that relate to what you guys did to keep him on this side of the earthly plane. Do you care to go back to what that looked like? There had to be an awful lot for your wife to get to the place she did that day to say, he's 18. At some point, he has to figure this out by himself. So I hope that we can go back into those 9 years and understand some of what you went through as parents that love their child the same as all of us do. We love our children more than ourselves most of the time.
We should go back because it was a combination of expressing as best we could, told us they didn't feel connected, knew we were his parents, and he knew that we loved him, but he would never say that he loved someone. There were accommodations that we made. Some people would say, you should have done this, you should have done that, but I would counter all that with saying you don't know until you're in that situation, right? To any listeners, they have done the best they could, the information they had. I don't go back and look at things as what would I have done differently. Right. A very good therapist one time, going through EMDR, I was having one of those moments, crying, upset. I said, and she asked, why do you think that would have made things better? And I said, if I had done this, he wouldn't have done that. If I had done this, he'd still be here. She said, you're not considering that anything you might have changed would have made things worse sooner or could have made the outcome worse. It can't get worse because it can. When she told me that, I was like, that's probably true. I think about what I could have done differently only in the context of it would have given me the outcome that I really wanted, which was for him to be here and be healthy, positive, and to accomplish things I knew he could accomplish. Psychiatrist tried various medications and told him that he's like, I don't really have a purpose here. There's no real reason to be here. I don't know why I'm here. We would say, none of us know why we're here when we're 14, 15, 16. These things will be revealed, but you're loved and we want you to stay because there's a plan. We just have to get through it. There was never like, you're an idiot. We never went down the cowardly path. It was like, I get it and we'll work through it. There was a time he threatened to hurt himself. I told him that if he ever did that again, I could not just idly stand by and allow him to hurt himself, that I would have to take him to the medical university psychiatric ward and get some space between where he wanted to hurt himself and not. He did do that again, not too long after. I did end up having to, with the police following me, drive him to the medical university and commit him to the psych ward. I don't know that he ever forgave me for that, although he said he understood. He told me later that I understand why you did it, but I don't know that I can ever forgive you for it. He even told me if I had a son doing that, I would have done the same thing. Very confusing messaging. There was love, the carrot, the stick. There was, there was ups. There were some good days. There were some bad days. There were some really bad days. And eventually there was the worst day. My wife and I would think we'd turn the corner, kind of loosen up the reins a little bit. And, it didn't.
Was he close to his siblings? If he was the youngest?
He was 16 months younger than his brother. Not even 2 years. The others were all 2 years apart, and he was 16 months behind. Even from an early age, no matter how much we worked to include him, he always saw himself as a separate. He could have a good relationship with his siblings, but most of the time, it was a self-induced conflict. If there wasn't one, he would create one. He would tell me, I refuse, I will not be getting attached because one day I will not be here. We had very open conversations.
He was obviously very smart. Not many humans feel that detached. There are some. A lot of times you see them go the other direction. They might be harmful to other people. They might be sociopaths.
I think he had a personality disorder. He was not diagnosed. The psychiatrist diagnosed him with anxiety and depression. Tested. They said he's not autistic. I do think there were characteristics of some sociopathic behavior. His brother would have been 19 at the time, or maybe he just turned 20, out of town. I called him to tell him, and the first thing he asked was, did he take anybody with him? I said, no. He goes, well, thank God. At least there's that. They had plans to travel together. Of course, that devastated my older son. Then my oldest daughter they competed for the smartest in the family. They were the highest. My family physician had just seen him about 10 days before. His wife is a psychiatrist, and Heston had seen both of them. We had a very good relationship with them. They had seen me through my cancer journey. The physician, younger, late 30s, early 40s, always made sure that he got Heston in to see me, would spend extra time with him. He had just seen him 10 days before. He was devastated. He was intelligent, loved languages and philosophy. I believe when in a dark place, the last thing you should do is read Nietzsche. It just reinforces what's the point. The Bible end to end, Marcus Aurelius' diaries, all the great literary works, the classics. I wish he had read Dostoevsky instead of Nietzsche or Carl Jung, but,
Right. Well, but to hear you even say that he was very into philosophy, I study ancient Stoicism, understanding Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. I'm the reason my husband got into studying that as well. My husband is not the father of Alex, but he's the great supporter of me. We were talking one time after he started reading and said, okay, I get why you like this. When I was younger, I used to call myself a realist. As I got older, I realized that realism was really kind of a stoicism. The irony of that is the other side of me. There's two sides of me completely different, but I find grounding in Stoic beliefs. He said, you have to be careful not to take some of this literally. It makes you feel, what's the point? When you get into a dark space, the last thing you need is Marcus Aurelius saying it is what it is and we have no control.
Marcus is reaffirming that an honorable death is a reward. Do not fear death and live. That's good philosophy. If you're in a dark place, it reinforces your move toward death. He would tell me, I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid of the pain of death.
As long as you want to live, not being afraid of dying is actually a healthy way to live your life. And as someone living with a cancer diagnosis, you understand that. I read on your website that while you're not afraid of death, you're afraid of the journey to death, the pain and things that can come with it. My husband and I have gotten into philosophical conversations that go in a circle sometimes. The works that we study of the ancient philosophers, most were written as personal journals. They weren't even writing them as works to be for the world. So think about a lot of our journals. I'm not sure I'd want the world seeing all of those and taking it all literally.
Nor implementing there.
Written long ago by many people, interpreted in many languages for years. You have to be careful how literally you read these things into modern life.
Without putting yourself back into that moment in history where that might have made sense in the language in which it was communicated at the time. He was writing in Latin about himself to himself. Then somebody finds it and they're like, hey, we should
publish this.
And then somebody reads it in the wrong mindset. So basically he was telling me it's okay to kill myself. But it's like it enforces it.
Even if he said it to himself, that doesn't mean the world needs to take that in or whatever. Right. So, it's interesting.
Nietzsche was a man who had a lot of problems.
A lot of them had a lot of problems.
I don't know that we should trust Nietzsche. He was in chronic pain. He had bad relationships. He was destitute at times. You're reading someone's writings, questioning the whole thing. If you're questioning the whole thing, well, that's just affirmation.
Exactly.
I don't mean to be laughing. It's not flippant. It's really just kind of a response to the sadness of it.
I understand. I want to talk about what is behind you now, who does have a passion for wanting people to understand you can overcome anything. I said those exact words this morning. One of the things that helps me, I was asking somebody if they had anything that motivated them, reading things, watching things that helped them understand that there are situations that are worse. We have to be careful to say this is the absolute worst thing that could ever happen. I hope this is the worst thing that's ever going to happen to me. Losing another child would be worse.
I believe you don't have listeners in yourself. That thought I have thought that thought a million times, right? I'm like, oh God, please, not that. There was a guy in one of our parents' suicide support groups. His only two daughters killed themselves. The younger one first, the older one second. In front of his house. I was like, I don't know how he's standing. The younger one did it, and then the older one used the exact same method at the exact same spot.
They can't see anything that makes more sense than the choice they're making.
Heston used to tell me it was absolutely logical. I was like, how do you come to this place? And his answer would be, how do you not? It is the logical thing to do. He was very old soul, very soft spirit, too soft for this world, actually. He was focused on justice. There was not much gray area for Heston. It was black or white, right or wrong.
That sounds perfect.
It's hard to know now because it wasn't diagnosed then, but when we've talked to people, it's come back as one of 2 or 3 possibilities. None of them make the end result any more acceptable.
Right.
I'm still stuck here having spoken with him and never be able to see him again.
Talk to me about how you came to understand that we as humans have the capacity to overcome anything, even when we think we can't. Talk about your philosophy and your way of living and looking at life through not only this adversity, but others.
You can always live out the prodigal son, make it back, right? Whether that's in a relationship or coming back from a setback, you can find your way home. It is possible. But what ended up in the book was these 15 things that throughout my life, various setbacks, just seemed like life. People would say, that's significant. I remember in therapy, she'd say, that's significant. And I'm like, well, wait till you hear the next thing. I tried to figure out what my ancestors, how did they survive? How did they build generation after generation? They didn't have plumbing, the internet. They didn't have toilet paper. They didn't have tampons.
Some human race is still here.
It grew, and I'm like, what did they do? So I have tattooed on each arm 3 words. I was working to find something that I could hold on to. Honor, courage, determination, perseverance, wisdom, and success. I had been told to always do the honorable thing. In my case, sometimes the honorable thing was just getting out of bed, getting a shower, because I didn't yesterday. That would give you courage, and if you could show courage a few times a day, that would turn into determination. If you could show determination, that represented perseverance. If you could persevere, you would gain enough experience to get wisdom. And with wisdom came success. That helped me out. Along the way, I started writing down on visual. I would have setbacks and make it through, not unscathed, but through. I started jotting down these little cliches, these phrases represented more, but I could grab that little phrase and remember this worked last time. Maybe it'll work this time. It started at 5 and 10 and it got to 15. And at 15, I said everything else has to fall into these because I'm not writing down anymore. But they kind of, to me represented guidepost that when everything went to hell in a handbasket, I could look at to reassure myself I could survive. Whether it was the cancer, whether it was Heston's suicide, whether it was the family trauma that came from Heston's suicide, whether it was the therapy and the EMDR that I had to go, that I went through and relived all these things so that I could reprocess them in a different neural pathway. The approach I took to integrative medicine along with standard of care were just things that I collected. Some people had suggested, so I decided one week to write something up and put them in a book. And I did. And so it's out on Amazon. I still rely on those things. They're really tangible to me. When I was going through therapy, one of my beliefs is no one outruns the universe. That represented you can't hide from this pain. You can't not confront it. You can't not do the hard work to find a way forward, no matter how painful it is. You can't outrun the universe to a place where you will deal with this. So better you just accept that now. When I stopped doing chemotherapy, I told my wife, I said, I'll never do another chemo. I'm done. It's killing me faster than it's killing the cancer. I'm finished. But it applied to Heston's passing as well, just hard consequences. I'd come across situations where I knew the right thing to do, like getting out of bed after Heston, getting a shower, eating, visiting with someone, not making it about Heston. You should get up. You should eat. But then the consequence was, if I do that, all I do is sit and think about Heston. There was all this conflict. I ended up writing down these things that for me were helpful, and I hope that in some way they might help someone else who has gone through a loss.
And what kind of book is it? Self-help? I know it's going to list these 15 breakthrough core principles that you have come up with and kind of help guide you. Every book has a different style. Some are survival manuals, some are more philosophy-driven. What how did you put it together? Each principle gets a section.
It's 2 parts. The first one is applying.
You make it thing.
The book is broken into two parts, talking about my experiences, but not in detail. This is how this belief helped me through this situation. It's self-help, more encouragement to take action. As weak and spent as you may feel, you still have the power to mentally work yourself one step forward or half a step to keep going until you can get to where you need to be in the next gate or phase. It's meant to be more of an encouragement to take action, no matter how small it is. After Heston, one of the beliefs is always fall forward. It's a reminder to keep your mind forward. You may not be able to move forward right now, but you cannot let your mind go backwards. You have to keep your mind looking forward. Always fall forward. You're going to fall. It hurts. It's brutal. Do what you can to fall in the direction of progress and then claw your way through it. It's crawling on your face, barely pulling yourself forward, but facing forward. Yeah. And that's a big win some days.
It is.
The book is about getting out of the house and taking actions, do something, take care of yourself, go to the gym, do something. You mentioned earlier about self-care. It's a long slog, and you got to take care of yourself to get through it. It's never going to go away, but the rest of your life can become a larger percentage of the whole, right, of the totality of your life. And while that will never be the same, that loss will, people say it get easier over time. I don't believe that.
I don't believe it. Different words, same meaning, turning things into action. I always tackle that phrase people love to throw out, time will heal. Just give it time, which is bullshit. Time doesn't do a damn thing except pass. It's what you do with time that matters. It's about choices. I talk about moving forward versus moving on. You're not going to move past your kid. You love your child. You're going to love them until you're gone. You're always going to carry this on some level. But forward progression matters. Finding ways to find hope and joy in this new version of life. It requires conscious choices. I enrolled myself in an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming course after it was a wake-up call for me. In that session, the only thing I could come to her with was the words, I'm stuck. And what it really turned out was I still had some past bullshit I needed to deal with that had bubbled up through this broken space that I now had. At 3.5 years, I should be metaphorically walking or running, and I feel like I'm crawling through the mud. She said, all that's important is movement, Melissa. Isn't crawling still movement? I said, yes. And she said, it's when you stop that matters. It's when you stop.
That's what you cannot.
Movement is all we care about because you're moving forward. There are times you're going to slog. There are times you might stand up and walk or even run for a brief period. You walk and run more. You still slog occasionally. But in the early days, that's all you're doing. It's the choices you make with the time that matters. It's just different language, but it's the same message.
I ended up working on the grief with Heston, having to deal with the things. I could no longer keep contained. This broke me. Then all this other stuff came out. I've not heard someone speak to that. For listeners, it can be a lot more. Even though the loss of a child is like how much more that can come flooding through and cloud. It's so hard to get through. Thought it was under control, and all of a sudden this has blown the doors off of it.
All of that extra stuff that has nothing to do with the loss has now come up and you're having to deal with it. A lot of it was childhood trauma. This has cracked you open at such a core level. It's great cracking when we lose a child, especially in such a complicated way as suicide. You may have dealt with it well enough if your life had continued on the trajectory it was before, but now you're existing in a whole new plane of existence. On this plane, if you don't have room for any of that extra little bullshit anymore, that becomes part of what they work on, even though you're like, I don't want to work on this old shit. Sometimes you have to because your trauma has reactivated past traumas and past experiences, and you end up having to deal with it.
I mean,
Can we just answer why I'm certified as a coach? Some of that is coach speak, but it's true.
I would hate for someone going through this to not hear that that's not abnormal. You may need to deal with that, but don't beat yourself down because all this stuff has come up. Your whole world has been blown up. You're not the person you were yesterday, right? It wouldn't be, I was that person yesterday, and now all of a sudden I'm not.
Now I'm this person. Exactly.
Yeah.
And all that. So I'm cognizant of the time and know we're coming to the end of what we can do here today. But I would like for you to finish with whatever you want to share to offer help or hope to other parents that are listening, especially parents that are newer in this journey. You're at almost 4 years, which is still new, but not brand new. Offer some help or hope that you would like to put out there. Besides, I think, buying this book, what else do you feel you could offer as we come
I would, be kind to yourself. If there's a spouse, be kind to the spouse, be kind to your children, but be kind to yourself. This person made a decision, a choice, for whatever reason, mental illness, bad day. It wasn't your choice. Be forgiving, patient. We're coming up on the anniversary of his death. We start feeling it 60 days before. My wife and I know.
Your body knows.
3.5 years is nothing. I talked to someone the other day, and they were 40 years in, and I still think about him all the time. I don't think about the grief of Heston's loss every moment. I have longer stretches where I am not sad. That is possible. It takes time and work. You can't just sit and expect it to happen. If they're listening to this, they're doing some work. There will be times where you will not be sad and days ahead where you'll actually smile. Somebody might tell a joke and you'll laugh. Then you'll pass a car like I do, the same color, and I'll look to see if it was him. And then it all goes to hell in a handbasket for a few minutes.
Right.
And I work my way out of it. It's very abnormal. Try not to let their death destroy everything else, because it has the power to destroy more than just that person. Moving forward does not mean forgetting them. Allow yourself to move forward.
Bringing them with you. I always say move forward, but take them with you. Nobody's asking you to leave them behind. Andy, thank you. I appreciate this so much. I appreciate you reaching out. This was a really nice conversation to have, so thanks a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Melissa.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
So thank you for joining me today, Grievers. If today's episode resonated with you, please consider subscribing to get weekly updates when I drop new episodes. And please take a moment to rate and review the podcast with 5 stars, especially on Apple Podcasts. Your support helps so much because it's how others are able to find the podcast and this community. Remember, though it may feel impossible now, hope and healing are within reach. I invite you to connect further by visiting my website, theleftoverpieces.com, where you'll find support, legacy options, retreats, resources, online Zoom groups, and so much more. Together, we can navigate this journey of healing. We can put our hearts, our leftover pieces, back together. And as they say here in Puerto Rico, poco a poco, juntas podemos. Little by little, together we can. Take care and talk soon.